Okay, so if you've been online at all lately, like anywhere near social media, or even just glanced at sports headlines, you've seen it.
Yeah.
The WNBA is just, it's everywhere. And right smack in the middle of that storm, Angel Reese. She calls herself an icon, a highlight machine, and she's confidently said, basically, that she's a big reason people are tuning into women's basketball.
Right, that famous quote.
But then, here's the twist. The All-Star votes just dropped, and let's just say her name wasn't exactly at the top, not even close. So what is really going on with all the hype? And hey, before we really dive into all that, we genuinely want to know what you think. Does Angel Reese deserve that All-Star nod? Or is the hype, maybe, a little bit out of control right now? Let us know down in the comments. We really do read them and love hearing your take.
Yeah, it's a really compelling situation, isn't it? It kind of perfectly highlights this tension, this push and pull between a player's brand, their off-court presence, and what they're actually doing on the court. So our goal here in this deep dive is, get past the quick takes on social media, the sound bites, and really unpack the story using what we've found. Look at the facts behind Angel Reese's image, her status, and yeah, those all-star votes that everyone's talking about.
Right.
We want to help you understand maybe the deeper currents here. What really matters in this whole conversation that's honestly changing so fast in pro sports?
Exactly. And I think to really get it, we have to start with Angel Reese herself, right? And how she talks about her own impact. She's very assertive, very direct. Like that quote you mentioned, the reason you're watching women's basketball isn't just one person, it's me too. She definitely projects this image of being a major force, an icon, someone who makes things happen, creates those highlights. It's core to her brand.
And what's so fascinating, right, is how that bold stance, which gets so much airtime, just slams right into the numbers, the data. When those all-star votes came in, the fans, the wider basketball world, they seem to have a very different view. It wasn't just that Reese missed the top 10 in fan voting for the front court.
No.
Her name was basically invisible. Like nowhere on the list people were looking at, not even a kind of, nod to her popularity spot.
Wow. Invisible.
Yeah, and that just clashes so strongly with the general perception and definitely with how she sees herself. It immediately makes you ask, okay, what actually makes a star in sports today? What are the real metrics?
That is a huge disconnect, isn't it? Because for the last 2, maybe 3 years, there's been this steady drumbeat in a lot of media coverage saying Angel Reese is a superstar, full stop.
Right.
Magazine covers, huge viral moments online. She's constantly part of the conversation. So when the actual votes from the people supposedly watching tell this completely different story, what's behind that original narrative? Like, how did the hype get so far out ahead of, the votes?
Well, it really pushes us to ask that question, doesn't it?
Okay.
How do we define the face of the league when social media is such a massive factor?
Good point.
Looking into the commentary around Reese, it seems pretty clear that a big chunk of that superstar story was built on her, frankly, enormous social media following. Her follower counts, her outspokenness, her knack for just creating buzz.
Okay.
Some journalists, some commentators pointing to that stuff, the followers, the viral hits, as proof she was leading the league's impact. It sort of suggested that, for some people anyway, popularity and cultural buzz were basically the same as being great on the court.
Oh, okay. So popularity equals performance in that view.
Kind of. But as the All-Star vote just showed, really clearly, popularity doesn't always cash out as performance when it comes to getting that official recognition from the league, from the fans voting specifically for on-court play. And that points to this bigger challenge for leagues, right? How do you use a player's massive online brand to grow the game, which is great, but also make sure that talent development, actual basketball skill remains the #1 thing for judging players and giving out awards? It's a tricky balance.
Yeah, no kidding. And that leads us right into what feels like, I don't know, the predictable plot twist, her all-star snub. It kind of feels like one of those movie moments you see coming, but you still watch. The descriptions of her play this season, some sources are pretty blunt, calling it rougher than a gym floor burn sometimes, saying inconsistency is the only thing that's actually consistent right now. It paints a very, very different picture than maybe those college highlight reels.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough stretch for her. You can see it. And when you actually watch the games this season, not just the clips, what used to be these explosive highlights, sometimes now it looks more like missed chances. You see missed layups, you see struggles with her mid-range shot. And defensively, the descriptions mention things lacking that sort of consistent intensity, maybe the positioning you absolutely need at the pro level.
Okay.
It's just a really clear sign that making that jump to the WNBA requires this level of like precision and doing it every single night that she's still working on, still developing.
Okay, let's get specific then. What about the stats, the hard numbers? Because, those don't really have opinions. What do they tell us about how she's playing right now?
Absolutely. And the stats, well, they paint a pretty clear picture. Take a recent game, for example. The stat line was something like 9 points, 2 assists, 2 rebounds. Okay. But the kicker was the plus-minus. Minus 25.
Oof. Minus 25.
Yeah, meaning the team got outscored by 25 points when she was on the court. Now, she did hit her only 3-point attempt, so technically 1 for 1 from deep. But the rest of her offense, it was a struggle. Right. And it's not just an isolated game. Her overall field goal percentage for the season, it's been hovering, reportedly, around 35%. That's a noticeable drop from her college days, and it's quite a bit below the average for players doing what she does.
35%. Wow.
Yeah. And then you look at assists versus turnovers. The ratio isn't great. More turnovers than assists right now, which kind of suggests she's maybe struggling a bit with ball security or making plays for others consistently. And all this fits into the team picture too, right? The Chicago Sky, they've been having a rough go, struggling for wins. Some have called them the league's punching bag lately. So when you put all those objective performance numbers together, it starts to make a lot more sense why her name just wasn't popping up on those all-star lists.
It really does. And it's such a stark contrast, like you said, to just last year in college. Angel Reese was absolutely on top of the world. Viral stuff constantly, Met Gala, taking over social media. I mean, that whole college championship run felt like nonstop confetti and fireworks. So what exactly happened? What's the difference between that and this pro reality? What are people saying about that jump?
That's such a key point, and it often gets glossed over, I think. Making the leap from college hoops to the WNBA is incredibly hard, like notoriously difficult, even for the biggest college stars.
Right.
You have to remember, everyone in the WNBA was probably the best player on their college team. The game's way faster. It's much more physical. And the strategies, the defenses, they're just way more complex.
It's not just about talent.
Exactly. Yeah. Opponents are quicker, they're stronger, they know how to exploit weaknesses. A move that worked every time in college might get shut down instantly in the pros. Lots of top picks, players with huge college hype, they take time. They have to adjust, add new things to their game, figure out their role against veterans who've been honing their craft for years.
Right. Makes sense.
It's not just about raw ability. It's about applying it consistently against the absolute best, night after night. So yeah, her college career had all the confetti and fireworks, but the pro reality hit hard, as some put it. Her season, even with all the off-court buzz still going, has been called, on court, something like a glamorous flop, just purely based on production versus the massive hype. It's a development phase for sure, but it's happening under this incredibly intense spotlight.
And when you zoom out, this whole Angel Reese discussion, it kind of makes you think about other athletes, right? Legends, like Dennis Rodman, huge personality, bigger than life, but he never really went around saying he was the reason people watched the NBA.
Good example, yeah.
And LeBron James, arguably the face of his league for, 2 decades? He didn't crown himself king. The world, the media, the fans did it for him. It raises this interesting point about, self-promotion versus earning that respect, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And this is where that whole conversation about humility versus, self-promotion gets really juicy. Think about Caitlin Clark right now. She is undeniably a massive reason for the WNBA's ratings boom. It's historic.
Yeah.
But despite that huge, undeniable impact, what do you hear from her? It's always gratitude for the game growing, deflecting individual credit. She never says, yeah, this is all me.
True.
And that approach, that sort of groundedness or humility, whatever you want to call it, fans seem to really connect with that. They respect it. Maybe they even crave it a little bit in their stars.
Yeah.
Angel's approach, her built different mantra, is very much rooted in self-promotion, building that powerful personal brand.
Which works for visibility.
Oh, incredibly well. For visibility, for sponsorships, absolutely. But what our sources suggest is that it can also color how fans, how the basketball world sees her overall contribution, especially when you stack it up against her current on-court numbers. It becomes this really fine line between genuine confidence and maybe what some perceive as overconfidence.
Speaking of brand versus basketball, that whole me bounce thing was fascinating. Angel Reese actually trademarked the idea of getting rebounds off her own missed shots.
Yeah.
turned it into a t-shirt, it went viral. There's a real irony there almost, isn't there?
The irony is pretty thick, yeah. It really speaks to this very modern thing in sports where sometimes the branding can kind of eclipse the fundamentals.
Yeah.
And the message from our deep dive seems crystal clear. You don't get all-star nods for clever marketing slogans or for going viral or even for making great facial expressions, honestly. You earn them by putting up numbers consistently, making plays that win games, leading your team. The league, fundamentally, it doesn't reward vibes and retweets with its highest honors. It demands points, solid defense, leadership, efficiency. Those are the things that make an all-star.
Actual basketball stuff.
The actual basketball stuff.
Yeah.
And despite all the off-court noise, which is considerable, her stat struggles are still there. That shooting percentage we talked about, it's low enough to, need a boost. Turnovers are higher than assists. And watching games, you can see her getting boxed out sometimes, struggling to grab those key rebounds against tougher opponents in the paint. Even her biggest fans had to search pretty hard to find her name high up on those voting lists. It just highlights that gap between online buzz and on-court results.
So, okay, we often hear the counter-argument, right? That Angel Reese isn't getting the recognition because of hate, or maybe the league feels threatened by her success, her boldness, maybe even other factors tied to identity. What does the information we looked at actually say about that narrative?
Yeah, that narrative is definitely out there.
Yeah.
But our look at the material, the commentary, the stats, it really pushes back against that directly. What the sources overwhelmingly suggest is a much simpler, more objective reason. Angel Reese isn't being left off all-star ballots because she's too bold or because of any of those external factors. She's being left off because her current basketball performance just isn't matching her huge brand and the expectations that naturally come with it.
Got it.
The WNBA, at its core, it's not reality TV, it's not a fashion runway, it's a professional basketball league and a highly competitive one. The main focus has to be on who's actually playing at an elite level, who's helping their team win consistently, who's showing those fundamental skills and leadership on the floor. Not just who makes the most noise or gets the most clicks on social media, the data, the performance. That's really the bottom line for All-Star talk.
Okay, so wrapping this up then, what does all this mean for Angel Reese going forward? Can she still become that star, that genuine all-star that lives up to the potential everyone clearly sees?
Oh, absolutely. The potential is undeniable. And the path to becoming that sustained, respected star is definitely still open for her. Yeah. The message coming from the league, from the fans, even from critics, seems pretty consistent and pretty clear. We see the talent, we see the potential, but we absolutely need to see the performance match it.
Right. Action needs to match the hype.
Exactly. To make that jump from just being a huge headline to being a lock for all-star games, she needs to elevate her game significantly. That means really focusing on getting that shooting percentage up, becoming a more consistent force on defense, improving her ball handling, cutting down turnovers, learning how to impact the game even when shots aren't falling.
The hard work stuff.
The hard work stuff. Putting in the hours in the gym, adapting her game from college to the pros, and just consistently showing she can hoop at that all-star level. It's about earning that title through her play, not just relying on her admittedly very powerful online presence. So maybe here's a final thought for you, for everyone listening, to kind of mull over. In today's sports world, where personal brands and social media reach are just incredibly powerful, how much does that off-court brand really sway how we see a player? And maybe more importantly, at what point does the on-court performance have to become the main thing for genuine athletic respect, for true legitimacy, for a lasting legacy?
Oh, that is a great question to chew on after we finish here. And we definitely want to hear your thoughts on all of this. Do you agree, disagree? Do you think Angel Reese should have gotten more all-star consideration? Or is the WNBA right to focus purely on results right now? Let us know. Drop your opinions in the comments section below. We really do love hearing what you think and diving deeper into these topics with you. So if you found this interesting, please give this deep dive a like, maybe share it with a friend who's following the WNBA, and definitely subscribe so you don't miss our next one. We'll catch you then.